had two older brothers and a sister. They were always really sporty, so growing up in sport and exercise really helped me. They were pushing me, they were always sort of throwing me around and this, that and the other, throwing me on a trampoline, which was the key for me growing up, was the trampoline. From a really young age, jumping up and down on that all day and getting your lungs working was the key, really. It was fairly competitive in our household, and I carried that on through school. So the school years for me was sort of cross-country running and football. Those were the two main sports. I was put on the rugby team because I was quick, but my main sports were football and cross-country running. So, the physiotherapy stopped when I was very young because the sport kind of took over and I didn't need the physio.
Very good.
So for me it was a question of just the tablets, like the enzymes to digest my food and the vitamins pretty much, and that was really it, strangely enough. And I think this is what I've always believed is with the sport and exercise, it puts you in such a positive mindset as well. It's not just about the physicality of the sport, it's the mental state that it puts you in. And I think that was really important growing up, is that not really sort of thinking about cystic fibrosis too much. It was always about, well, I'm normal. I'm beating normal kids. They can't keep up with me, so I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing. I always wanted to sort of push myself to the extreme and see how far I could really go. And when I was 17, I climbed Kilimanjaro for cystic fibrosis, and I was the youngest person with CF to ever climb it and reach the summit. And at the top, I stripped off to the waist at minus 15 degrees and had a boxing match with Scott Welsh, who's the former European heavyweight champion. So he was actually in the film Snatch with Brad Pitt as well, so he taught Brad Pitt how to box. So it was pretty cool. So we said for charity, to raise more money, we'd strip off to the waist and have a 3-minute sparring match. So we'd practiced, like he taught me and stuff, and we'd gone through the motions of what we were going to do on the day for months in advance. And then when it actually happened, I thought, well, it's on camera, this is my chance to try and catch him off his guard. And I caught him within the first sort of 30 seconds, and he thought, right, okay, this isn't just for charity then. And he got me back he got me back really well. But for me, I think to become the youngest ever to do that was, again, something to prove to people that having CF doesn't have to stop you from, achieving what you really want to go for in life. And I wanted to, and this was I've run half marathons, I've run, other ultra events, but I wanted to sort of come up with something that was just out of this world. It was something that hardly anyone in the world has ever done. So my passion really is for not just sort of events, but everyday life, is to push myself to the absolute limit. Train for cramp. Let's get cramp as soon as we can and see how long I can last with cramp. And that's been my sort of strategy leading up to this as well, which obviously we'll move on to later. But for me, it's always been a case of, that guy over there hasn't got CF and he's just quit, so I'm going to carry on and see how far I can go. And that mentality really it's never stopped. And the calories, with cystic fibrosis, obviously you only absorb roughly 50 to 60% of what you intake anyway. So you've got to eat more naturally to keep up your energy levels. So on any given day, if I'm not training, I'm eating sort of 4,000 calories a day anyway. So leading up to this, I'm eating roughly, this week I'm eating 7,000 to 8,000 a day. And I'm actually taking on board, because of the cystic fibrosis, what happens is when you sweat, you lose more salt. So I'm on sodium citrate as well in my shakes, so one every morning and one every night, to basically load up the salt reserves. So it's like a lactic acid buffer, if you like.
Yes.
So I'm loading up on salt, and I'll be taking for this challenge 2 salt tablets an hour as well, because of the amount I'm going to sweat. I need to replace those salts really quick. And again, the same with the isotonic drinks. So the isotonics will help with that salt as well. So there's certain aspects of the diet that have just been pretty normal to any average person. But certainly when it comes to cystic fibrosis, like the vitamin levels as well, in your sweat obviously, and when you're exercising you're losing a lot of vitamins. So the vitamins for me have had to be quite high in terms of vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin K as well. So the multivitamins, and then obviously looking at the salt levels, especially because, as we all know, as your salt levels go down, cramp happens. So when I did the 75% test run a few months ago, I got cramp about 7.5 hours in, and I think it was really more of a case of the fluids that I wasn't taking on board. I wasn't taking enough on, and certainly not enough salt. So that was a real sharp learning curve for me. 7.5 hours in, and then we carried on, and then I got cramp again, 10.5 hours in, and then 12 hours in, and then it went. So, and you can train through cramp. That's the key, really, is that mental state of mind is just to go through it. Don't let it stop you. If you stop and seize up, that's the worst thing that happens to you. With salt, it's in cystic fibrosis, and I don't know quite the technical way of how it happens, but we don't transfer salt as well as others, and so we lose that salt when we sweat. And it's really strange that when you exercise or when you're in the heat on holiday and things like that, it's really strange. So when I could go for a 2-hour session and sweat with black leggings on or black skin tight t-shirt on, and all of a sudden what you'll see is it'll turn white. It's really strange because you'll physically see the salt on my skin. And I think a lot of people, when you're growing up as a kid, my family were always giving me, it was really strange because I actually quite liked them, was salt sandwiches. They're not, now I've tried them and I'm, oh no, how did I ever eat those? But actually they were quite nice growing up as a kid. So we're in the south of France, it was really hot, and I had a salt sandwich next to someone who had just a normal chicken sandwich. It was just really strange. But so we lose a lot more salt in our sweat. So obviously that needs to get replenished pretty quickly. The tablets I'm on normally with just the cystic fibrosis are the enzymes. So to digest my food, I take enzymes every day. The amount of food I eat is quite a lot, so I probably have about 25 to 30 enzymes a day. So each 7 grams of fat needs 1 enzyme, 1 tablet. So I eat quite a lot of those. The vitamins, like I said, I go through a lot of vitamins every day. Vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin K, and vitamin E, and the multivitamins. So just with the CF side of things, I'm probably on around 40 tablets a day. With PAS, who do all my supplementation for me, so I take the omega-3 fish oils as well, and then I'm on like immune system defense tablets to stop you from getting colds and things like that, because you need to perform at the highest level at all times, and if you get a cold, it can affect your training, so I can't afford for that to happen, so I have to take all these tablets to do that as well. And AGF, which is like a natural testosterone booster. Okay. So it's all natural, but obviously it helps aid strength. So I'm on probably, I'd say, 50 to 60 tablets a day, I'd imagine, to cope with the training that I'm doing. On top of that, the supplements I take I take creatine every day, which retains the water in my muscles as well, and obviously helps with strength. The protein powders that I take, RGF and MGF, which is sort of like recovery, and also muscle growth. So I take both of those proteins every day. And then the isotonic drinks when I train, the sodium citrate, again, to get more salts in. So you normally sort of load up your body 3 days before an event with sodium citrate, to really build on that sort of base layer, if you like. And then it's the protein bars to get some extra protein in, extra carbs, and I think the diet, my day-to-day diet, is roughly sort of 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day anyway. This week, like I said, it's been sort of 7,000 to 8,000, but this week it's changed, so it's normally a protein-heavy diet for muscle growth and muscle repair and recovery. But this week, because of the endurance event tomorrow, it's very much a carb-heavy diet to get those energy stores in, carb load throughout this week. There's a huge amount of carbs every day, which most people hate, but I actually quite enjoy. I love my food, so With cystic fibrosis, I think, like I said, I've been really lucky in terms of, when I say lucky, I've worked hard for my health. You know, I've worked every single day of my life. I'm in the gym. This week, having 4 days off is almost killing me. I'm like itching to go now. But I think some days you wake up and you think, right, I've got to do it all over again. Like, it's that every single day, that monotonous sort of drive. I think sometimes it becomes monotonous, but I think for me, I quite enjoy it. I enjoy seeing new peaks. Yes, you get your troughs, and that kind of like puts you in a bit of a mindset that, okay, so how am I going to increase? How am I going to improve? How am I going to get faster, fitter, stronger, and what have you? Cystic fibrosis is something that, you know, I don't have that constant reminder that I've got a cough or I'm ill or I feel weak. You know, because I've worked hard from a very, very young age, and that's what I'd stress to anyone growing up with CF is, you know, especially the young families, is get your kids into sport and fitness as soon as you possibly can. You know, I was on a trampoline at the age of 1, you know, jumping up and down on a trampoline, you know, and I think that's what's helped me get a good base. But don't get me wrong, there are days in the morning where you wake up and you think, right, you know, I'm a bit tired, I'm a bit exhausted, you know, I could do with a day off, I could do with a day just laying in bed watching films all day and just eating copious amounts of ice cream. But, you know, it's a bit hard hitting, but I have no excuse, you know, because the motivation for me to get up and go is life. That's what I'm used to, and that's what you've kind of got to be. I kind of had this vision, this idea that I wanted to raise a lot of money for cystic fibrosis, but more importantly the awareness to sport and exercise within CF. So for me, I knew I needed to come up with some sort of event, some ultra endurance event that was just going to blow people away. And I actually used the line that I wanted to take people's breath away, because that's what CF does to people all over the world every day. So I did some research on Google, and I found a guy called Joe Decker, who was supposedly the fittest man in the world, and he did this challenge, a variation of this challenge, in the year 2000. And I was looking at the challenges, I thought, I reckon I could do that. And whether that was just sort of like the ego in me, I sort of thought, well, I've got to do it. This is something that I've just got to prove. I've got to go out there, I've got to put myself out there and risk, you know, putting it on the line and actually going for it. So I said, right, okay, I'm going to call it 24 Hours for CF. And when I first announced it, I had so many people say to me, oh, are you sure you can do that? Are you sure this is going to be, you know, doable? And I think a lot of people sort of doubted it. But in my head, I knew that once my sights are on a goal, I'm going to go for it. So the training over the last 12 months, if I'm honest, a lot of it has been down to being inspired by some of the stories that I've seen online with other kids with CF, you know, sending in their photos, doing the 2-4, you know, for me it's just been absolutely incredible, because that's given me the drive and motivation to keep going and keep training how I am, and, you know, and I'm not doing this for myself anymore. Whereas when I first started out, it was very much a personal mission to prove to everyone what I can do. It's actually now a mission to prove to kids all over the world what is possible for anyone to do with CF. Not about me, it's about, you know, motivating and inspiring them. So I think that was the defining moment of this challenge. Was I knew I was going to have to put in 12 months of sheer blood, sweat and tears, and eat. I think I worked it out the other day, the average man eats around 700,000 or 800,000 calories a year, and I've done 1.7 million. Which is just absolutely obscene, you know, and that's not even taking into consideration the hours in the gym. But the training for this has been very much a mixture of sort of 3 to 4 hours a day in the gym, and then on weekends 5 to 6 hours a day, and that's been a mixture of running, rowing, cycling, and then going in and lifting loads of weight and shifting 25-30 tons of weight, and then doing, I haven't even counted the amount of sit-ups, press-ups and squats I've done over the last 12 months, but it's a ridiculous amount. But the mental aspect of it has very much been, I've always had the cause in the back of my mind, I want to make 24 Hours for CF an internationally renowned day, or internationally recognised day I should say, for kids and families all over the world to help them battle CF and fight CF. So for me, I'm still on that mission. We're not there yet, so it's going to take us maybe a couple of years to get there. So it's a challenge a year for me until that happens, and then I'll probably keep going anyway. So for me, it's that mental aspect of the training. I've worked closely with Darren Campbell, ex-Olympian, and he's been a godsend for me because he's competed at that elite level, and he's understood the highs and the lows of being in front of a lot of people and having to perform on that day. You know, I mean, for him it was a lot harder in terms of like, he's just got 10 seconds to perform, whereas I've got 24 hours. So for me, that mental preparation has been visualization, a lot of visualization techniques of sort of looking at myself and thinking, okay, well, can I visualize myself completing these hours, but more importantly, how I'm going to complete them. You know, what am I going to look like when I cross the finish line? Who knows? But all I know is that, you know, mentally having the kids sending in photos is enough for me. You know, if I was able to inspire one person, that would have been enough for me. But now we've inspired thousands, and it's just already, it's grown huge in the first year, and that's really what it's all down to. Online, I think we're up to about £15,500 online. The target is £100,000. Including offline, I think we're up to about 25,000 at the moment. And we've got a couple of dinners coming up later on in the year as well, so that will just keep going, and we'll get to the 100, and then we'll see what the next limit is and the next target. Yeah, so quite a few people have asked me this, and you know, it's like, what are you going to do after this event? It's such a huge event, and it's the first year as well. So, like I said earlier, this event is, the challenge is a variation of the World's Fittest Man challenge. So I think it's only right that next year I go for the World's Fittest Man challenge. So I've put my application into the Guinness Book of Records for next July, so July 2018, and I will attempt the World Physical Fitness Challenge, which is, to give you a rundown, it's a 110-mile cycle, lift 130 tonnes, and then you've got to run 12 miles, walk 12 miles with a 10-pound pack on your back, then you've got to cross-train 20 miles, row 20 miles, and then you've got to do a 2-mile swim, and then 3,250 sit-ups, 1,250 press-ups, 1,250 star jumps, and 1,250 hip flexors, and you've got to complete all of that in 18 hours 56. So that's the plan for July 2018, 18 hours 56, and there's a slight difference in that challenge. You can't move on to the next exercise until you finish the previous one. So those 3,250 sit-ups have to be pretty much unbroken until you finish. The 1,250 press-ups pretty much unbroken. So that's next year.